Hello everybody and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix playthrough. So, as I mentioned at the end of the last part, we have made it. And we've got a new command board, so before we go and visit a new world, which we will actually be doing at the end of this part, we're going to have some fun with the 100-acre wood board. Which is obviously really delightful because we get to play against Pooh and Tigger, which basically just meant that they had to have Jim Cummings come in and voice them very briefly for this. It's one way to cut down on your voice acting, Bill, eh? Just have
there we go.
Two characters voiced by the same person. It's perfectly normal. But yeah, I mean, I will say this is quite a fun little board.
Oh, yes.
Because effectively what you do on it is a sort of figure eight, and that can be quite helpful. Also, you get your opponents, namely Tigger, starting to use their hands a little bit more than you will have been doing, well, potentially, well, any of the other boards have done up to this point. So immediately you do get a little bit more of a challenge when tackling this board than you have done in the past. It's still not too much of a challenge, but it can certainly be a little bit more fraught because Tigger's pretty much going to be using 2 dice throughout the entire board. So you do just have to be that little bit more careful. And also there's another gimmick on the star space, because effectively what that one is it's like a honeypot. I believe you are actually going to see it, and it means that you can either get GP or lose GP depending on whether it's a honeypot or a honeypot with bees. It varies. But since I am going through another of these command boards, there are going to be more as we go. I thought it'd be useful to kind of discuss some of the gimmicks that the Kingdom Hearts franchise has introduced over the years. The sort of the mainline games have been pretty gimmick free for the most part, I want to say. And the reason I say that is because if you look at Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, the only real gimmicks that they've got are the gummy ships. And while Kingdom Hearts 1 gummy ship was quite dull, the sort of creation aspect was relatively fun and just made for some perhaps you could create some really cool designs. Not that you necessarily would, but it was there if you wanted to. Kingdom Hearts 2 obviously ramped up the excitement with the gummy ship segments and made them into a really awesome sequence that you could go into. And I did really like that as a gimmick. It worked really well, and it was a nice shift up from what we had previously. But then you get into sort of all the other games in the franchise where loads of different gimmicks were introduced, and some of them worked better than others. So the sort of first main one that most people would point to, and I too will point to, is the delight that is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which obviously introduced the card battle system. Now, having played through Chain of Memories, I am not a fan of the system. It's interesting, it creates a very intriguing take on the combat system of Kingdom Hearts by limiting your attack abilities to certain cards, and you have to be a bit more tactical in how you tackle everything, because you have to make sure you have enough, like the higher cards, 0 cards, you've got enough to do the slights that you want to do, and all that jazz, so you really do have to play it quite strategically. The problem with that is that obviously Kingdom Hearts has always been a very, as I have said before, button mashy type experience. So suddenly having to think more strategically about your fights doesn't sit quite so nicely.
There we go.
And also just ends up slowing down the game quite dramatically. And because you end up with reduced options in combat, it just doesn't come across as quite that fun for me. And it's one of the reasons why I don't think I ever will actually cover Rechain of Memories, because I found it to be a slog of a game. And that makes me sad, because part of me does sort of want to have covered all of the Kingdom Hearts games out there, but really, I would just end up making myself miserable going through Chain of Memories again, and I don't want to do that to myself. So I'm not going to do that to myself. Then, obviously, Birth by Sleep, it had the change to the combat system as well, because you had the command styles and all that. But I would say the thing about the command styles is that it doesn't limit your standard battle abilities, because you can just mash away on that attack button and you'll be absolutely fine. But it then gives you your extra moves in that rotating ATB gauge type environment, and because it doesn't go away completely, it ends up being a much more enjoyable experience, because you can string a load together, and while you may have to wait for them to return, it's not like they never will return. And also, some of the moves as you get later into the game can be really quite phenomenally spectacular. Then also you've got the awesomeness of the command styles and how that works, and just in general you end up with this much more exciting style of combat. Obviously they then introduce the command board, which is slow and not necessarily the best thing in the world, but is a fun little side distraction, I would say, that it works. They could have maybe just sped it up a wee bit and that would have made it a better experience. But considering it can also then flow into the whole command melding thing, I would say that on the whole Birth by Sleep has the strongest gimmicks in the entirety of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Then you have 358 over 2 days, which pretty much, I'd say the main gimmicks for that are the mission structure, because you go on missions rather than explore worlds at will and kind of do bits of the story. But also in terms of how you leveled up and had commands and stuff, that was pretty unique, because it was like a grid and you had to put little chips into it in different structures in order to select what moves you wanted and how much wanted to be leveled up and all of that. And oh, I will take that panel capture, thank you very much. And that was an interesting take, and for 358 over 2 days and its heavily portable nature, it worked. It wasn't perfect, because it meant that sometimes, as mentioned, you end up being limited in your combat potential. However, it worked on the same ATB gauge idea as Birth by Sleep for the most part. I think some of the moves might have been limited to totals, like you could only use it so many times in a mission, but that wasn't quite so bad. Recoded continued with that idea, but it gave you like a computer board, like the bare bones of a computer, effectively. And once again, you put chips in to level up certain things. And that was definitely an improvement on that idea, because while you had to make a choice of what you added, I don't think it boiled down to your attack capabilities so much as sort of extra things. It worked out a lot better. Also, Recoded had some very fun variations in terms of how it's dealt with the world, because while each world had sort of more typical gameplay, it also had, as your sort of final boss, effectively, these mini-game type things, which were a lot of fun. Once again, some better than others, but these things happen. And I would say that because of that, Recoded does end up coming out as the strongest of the DS games in terms of the pure gameplay. But then I would say that 3 for Over 2 Days has the better story, it's just that it drags because of the gameplay.
There we go.
Then you have Dream Drop Distance, which is pretty much Birth by Sleep on acid, because it's the same command style situation as Birth by Sleep. But you then get the the additional gimmicks of flow motion, which is delightful, because it means you get to explore areas in a much more freeform way, which was really cool. And then it also introduced the Dream Eaters as your allies for the game, and you had a sort of petting area that is effectively like Pokemon Ami in the Pokemon franchise, which was pretty nice. But then you also had a whole bunch of other things to do with those Dream Eaters, because you had Flick Rush, which was effectively the card type gameplay of Chain of Memories, but with the Dream Eaters, but it worked because it was a small minigame and it didn't matter so much. So that was definitely an improvement. But then the gimmick that Dream Drop Distance introduced, which killed most people's enjoyment of the game, was the drop mechanic of your story switching between Soras and Rikus at effectively random. It was a bit more controlled than that, but that's the gist of it. And people got really frustrated by that, which is something that I totally understand. So Dream Drop Distance ends up being a sort of middle ground in terms of the gimmicks, because there were some gimmicks which it introduced which were okay and fun, but others which were to its detriment. So I say, in terms of gimmickiness, in terms of things that are a bit more outside the norm, Birth by Sleep comes out on top, without a shadow of a doubt. Then I would say it is Dream Drop Distance, because it's close in gameplay to the sort of main style, but adds in a few of its own wrinkles. Then it would probably be Recoded, then 358 over 2 days, then Chain of Memories. For me, anyway. Probably won't be the same for many other people, but that's sort of my rundown. And I know I've sort of not included Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 in there, but that's because I sort of see the Gummy Ship, while it's a gimmick and an additional gameplay style, that's sort of your mainline style, so it's not necessarily as unique a gimmick as it could have been. But hey, now that nice long 30-minute discussion, which I'm quite happy with, is finished, we have entered Disney Town, which is our mini-game world for the game, and it's delightful. Each character is going to have to deal with a different minigame in Disney Town, and
The name's Terra.
they're of varying quality, shall we say.
Nuts running out onto the course like that? Yeah, that's against the rules. I'm sure you had your reasons, but I can't say that I approve either.
Well, rules don't apply when you're up against the unversed.
Rules don't apply? You sound just like Pete. Look, it's Captain Dark.
Disguised in shadows, the rogue racer reigns. I am Captain Dark. And you must be the chump who made me miss a new track record. Hold on, how's come I don't know you? Somebody bringing in a ringer?
Oh, I'm not even a racer.
Must be downright temptatious to try and stop a primo racer like me from getting the record, but we all gotta play by the rules, rookie.
Now, just a second. You're the no-good cheater who's always breaking the rules.
Well, I can't say racing interests me, but I need to defeat the unversed. Tell me what I've got to do.
Are you talking about all those carts that look like scary, ugly monsters? Well, we've only ever seen the monsters on the track. That's it! Terra, you just need to enter the races. And while you're at it, take that Captain Dark down a notch or two. He's always breaking the rules and causing trouble.
I have to become a racer?
Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you.
I know. I'll play by the rules.
Yay! Terra's gonna be a new racer! Just come talk to me whenever you're ready. I'll get you signed up and everything.
So, yes, for Terra's trip to Disney Town with this delightful piece of music. It's another Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo moment of the Mickey Mouse Club March. Right here. Who's the leader of the pack who's made for you and me? MICKEYMOUSE. Oh, it just gets in your head and it sticks and it's terrifying. What is actually kind of hilarious though is that there's the whole thing of we ain't never seen those guys anywhere but the racetrack, and yet the second you step outside of the racetrack there's a whole bunch of Heartless. And there are Heartless, a whole bunch of Unversed, and there are a lot of Unversed throughout Disney Town. They're only in sort of a few key areas, namely this open area outside the racetrack and in the sewers. But there's some pretty decent levelling to be done here. There's also quite a few chests which you can get. Oh, yes! Payback Fang. Glorious. Means if you get hit, you can counter right back, and yeah, Payback Fang. Glorious. It just means that you have a lot more opportunities to respond to getting attacked, because obviously in pretty much every other Kingdom Hearts game you've had the aerial recovery, where if you get hit and you get kind of flung away, you can flip yourself back into motion and be able to continue attacking, but the Quest doesn't actually have anything like that until you get the Payback Fang, which really, yeah, I'm very much down to play with the Payback Fang or the Payback Raid or whatever the hell version you end up getting with each of the characters, because it's so useful. Yes, I will point out, we're going to be in Disney Town for a little while. Very much like Radiant Garden, which was a two-parter, this is also going to be a two-parter. It's probably not going to be the case for everyone following this, but that's largely because I had to get into the flow of things with Terra, because we are going to be spending a lot of time in the sewers, because there's a lot of stuff down in the sewers. And really, I just want to make sure that I get it all. And because I want to get it all, it's just going to be a little bit frustrating. Now, if you want to get down to the sewers, you just need to go down that glowing manhole that's right next to the save point. So they did make it quite nice and clear where you needed to go, which is helpful. And what is nice as well is that you don't actually need to do any of this. You can just go straight into the Rumble Racing minigame and finish the world. But if you want to collect everything, and part of me says you probably should,
Come on in.
That would be good. Now, I've been beating up a few prize pods throughout, and what this allows you to do is it allows you to make ice creams if you've gotten enough of them. Annoyingly, we don't really have anywhere near enough, and you would have to defeat quite a few, or attack quite a few prize pods throughout the game in order to get those, but it's something that if you wanted to go for 100% you will be having to do, because I believe that there is a trophy associated with it. Not 100% sure, but there might be. But yes, I thought, you know what, let's play a little bit of fruit ball. Why not? Give it a go. I don't need to, and to be honest, I could probably have just completely cut this out, because really, it's not going to go well for me, because you've got 3 minutes and some unversed to take down. The gist is pretty much you are running about this area trying to shoot fruit into the goals of your opponents. And there is an element of strategy to this, but generally the way that most runs are going to go is that you are just frantically attacking things. I believe you might stand a better chance if you are that little bit more tactical in terms of your approach, and hopefully by the time I have to do this properly in order to progress in the game, I will actually be better, because as it stands, this is a terrible run of this, and it just gets really chaotic, because I mean, as you can see, everything is falling all over the place, and I'm pretty much just spiking everything in the hopes that it goes well for me. It's not going to go well for me. And I believe that I'm actually only going to miss it by like a point or two. But yeah, I was not happy at all. And I will definitely have to do a little bit more experimenting with everything in terms of how this works. Thankfully, the other 2 mini-games are a lot easier to figure out, and also a lot easier to win. So, I am looking forward to those a little bit more than this. But hey, sometimes you've just got to experiment and have a little bit of fun just causing chaos as you go, even if you end up losing miserably against an AI, because that's always fun. That's always what you aim to do in video games, is it not? Yeah, this does go on for a little bit longer than I would like. And part of me is just like, but guys, isn't this slightly unfair? There's 2 of you and there's 1 of me. Surely I should have a partner in this. And then I got to this bit and I was just like, oh come on, I can win this. I can do this. And then, yeah, it just went away from me, and I just ended up having to play catch up. It's just like, oh come on, I've knocked one of them down. I can do this. And if that had gone in, I would have drawn, but hey, I lost! Better things to come in the next part, I hope.